And welcome back. Our next guest this morning is a noted novelist as well as a nonfiction writer. In 1983, he was the finalist for the Pulitzer for his novel Conversations with the Enemy. But he is perhaps best known for his 1986 novel Forrest Gump, which of course in 1994 was made into the hit film starring Tom Hanks. The novel ended up selling close to 2 million copies worldwide and was a bestseller. His latest work chronicles Alabama football and is entitled The Crimson Tide, the official illustrated history of Alabama football, National Championship Edition. With that, we say good morning to author Winston Groom. How are you? Cold enough for you today?
It was cold enough, early enough too.
You're like us. You know, we get a lot of people on this show and we'll say it's early in the morning. Oh, it's not early. I said, you work in the TV business for a few years and it's pretty early.
Well, I tell you, I'm over at the Capstone Hotel and all around me, all the players, and they're not stirring. They're not moving. They got one guy in the hall that's making sure that nobody does anything bad. But you don't hear people out
They got a long wait today. Yeah.
Last night there was a lot of slamming of doors for some reason.
getting ready. Coach Saban might have been over there. All right. You know, well, we're going to get to the Crimson Tide National Championship Edition of Illustrated History of Alabama Football in a moment. But first, I want to touch on Forrest Gump because when you write a book like that, it goes on to become an incredible film. People associate you with that. But your love for Alabama football came through in that book and, of course, in the film as well. It was easy to see that Alabama football was a big part of your life just watching the film.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was writing the book, I really wasn't sure where this thing was going to go. And I didn't have a net. I didn't have notes. I didn't have research or anything. I just get up in the morning and say, what's this guy going to do? And what I had on my hands was a 6'4", 240-pound idiot. But when I got to the point, and I just said, what is he going to do? And let's see if we can play football. When I got him playing football for Coach Bryant, I said, if he can do that and the reader will believe it, he'll believe anything in the world that he does. And I was right, because that's what it is. When you got a character like that, you have to suspend your normal reasonable beliefs and go on and get with the character. But after I had him play football for Coach Brown, I said, that's it.
Yeah, it was all downhill from there.
Now it's his mind.
He could do anything.
Yeah.
How much difference is there between the book and what you see on film? Did Hollywood take a lot of liberties?
Oh, sure, but they always do. I mean, all writers, I think, want to have their books turned into a movie. It's just like the book, in which case the movie would be 3 or 4 days long. And so nobody's going to sit through that, and they start tinkering. And when they tinker one place, you got to tinker another place, and by the time they get through tinkering, it's a whole different kind of deal. But I just write the book. They make the movies, that's fine. We got a deal. They pay me money, I write the book.
You know, we get all these scripts in TV, and Jennifer Hamner, our director, is probably already sitting in there talking about me because I've already got us out of order.
We're deviating.
Before we got to Forrest Gump, we were supposed to talk about the Crimson Tide National Championship Edition. Now, you first came out with an illustrated history of Alabama football in 2000. You told me that you planned then to update it anyway, but what a decade of Alabama football between the time the book first came out and now 2010.
I mean, it may be the most interesting, it wasn't the most pleasant, but it may be the most interesting decade of football that I can recall throughout, since 1892. It's almost 120 years of history. We began with a complete disaster with poor old Mike DuBose and his scandal in the secretary, and then the season that we were, 3-8 or whatever, and then we wound up with Coach Fran.
It was a pretty good coach.
It was a pretty good coach, and then he'd leave without even saying bye-bye, and that was not too good. And then we get of course, we had the NCAA penalties against us, and then we get Coach Mike Price, who was a complete disaster before the start.
Didn't coach a game, but had some good times.
And then we got Coach Shula, who, bless his heart, was about the only person who we could get to come here. I mean, you know, we had these penalties, and the recruiting season was over, and he was a guy who came in at the last minute, and I think did a pretty doggone good job for what he was faced with. And then, of course, we have now so I mean, it all is well that ends well.
That's right. Started out terrible, ended great.
Winston, the highlight of this book, obviously the National Championship Edition, but before that, you chronicle everything from the start of the program, really, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, what the school wanted, they came to me back in a year or so before this, back in the late 1990s, and they wanted a history of football at the school that was to be official, because it is a big part of the school. It's not all the school, and there's, matter of fact, it's a very small part considering, but they wanted it to be really good, and so that they came to me first and said, all right. And I said, well, what do you want? How big? They said, well, about 150 pages, maybe 50 pictures. And I said, let me look. And so I went to the Bryant Museum in the athletic department. I looked at all the material, and I went back down and I said, look, I'll do it, but I'm not going to do it like you want to do it. We're going to have about 300 pictures and about 150 pages. And I mean, 150 pictures, and it's going to have to be a glossy, and it's going to be expensive. And we can't do that yet. So anyway, the president got involved, and suddenly the money came. And I'm glad they did, and I think they did too, because it's a very handsome,
it's gorgeous.
The paper is worth the price of the book.
Yeah. And everybody that I've talked to has got one, has enjoyed it and continues to enjoy it. Now, you're on campus visiting with us this morning, but you're going to be here all day. You're going to be signing copies of the book. People can get the book, so go ahead and update us on that.
Well, I'll be at the alumni tent, which is right over here behind us on the corner of Colonial and University Boulevard, from 2 to 4 this afternoon, along with Tyrone Prothrow. He'll be there, and I'll be signing books. But you can also get it anywhere. And it makes a good Christmas present. I was saying earlier, 90% of the people that buy this book, when I go to these book signings, are ladies, and they buy multiple copies.
Right.
And they say, you saved my Christmas for me.
Well, it is an incredible book. If you have not gotten yours yet, make sure and pick it up. Today would be a great day because Winston will sign it for you.
Winston, thanks very much for stopping by.
Thanks,
Don't go anywhere. You're going to give us some guest picks later on, I believe. So hang around.
Hey, did you know about that?
Did you know about that?
Hey, you're going to pick the SEC.
Well, I saw that.
Okay.
I guess as good as anybody else.
You can do probably better than us. Winston Groom, the renowned author. Right, Richard, give us an update on the weather.
Hey, John and Gary, I tell you what, it feels great out here now, especially standing in the sunshine. It's a bit warmer starting off this morning in the 30s, many of us. A cold start, but temperatures do warm up later on today. Let's go over to Tower Camera, show you what's happening outside right now. We're looking at Bryant-Denny Stadium, the north end zone there, and I tell you, it is a gorgeous Saturday morning. Perfect conditions for football weather. Let's throw on current conditions. 46, still 46 degrees, but you stand in the sun, it does feel a bit warmer. In the shade, I bet it feels a bit colder. Sunny skies in place, obviously. The dew point 42, really dry air in place, and look, dry air heats and cools very effectively, so that's why the temperatures will quickly warm up today. In fact, we will get a bit warmer. Elsewhere, temperature wise, we've got 49 over Birmingham. Check out Haleyville, still 42 degrees. Some places in North Alabama were in the mid 30s this morning, close to freezing, especially around Hamilton in Haleyville. But satellite and radar across the southeastern U.S., we are looking great. High pressure in place, and that means sinking air, no clouds around, no rain in the forecast today and even through the rest of the weekend. We're talking football weather. Not bad at all. So let's show you the quick cast today. It's homecoming here on the UA campus, and 10 o'clock this morning. We'll be closer to 61. And, hey, check out the noontime temperature, 71 for the homecoming parade happening. Again, starts at noon, and we'll be broadcasting that live here on campus. Sunny skies in place for the rest of the day all the way through 4 o'clock. And John and Gary, a little bit later on in the show, I'll talk about the kickoff forecast and more nice conditions to talk about. But the kickoff forecast will be a bit cool, I'll tell you that, and much more coming up a bit later.
Well, thank you, Richard, and we've got much more coming up here on Crimson Tide Kickoff. Coming up, it's our SEC Roundup. We'll preview today's top 25 showdown on the Plains. Will Auburn play a complete game? And what does Bobby Petrino think about returning to Tigertown? You know, he coached at Auburn as the offensive coordinator, was almost the head coach. We'll have that and much more when we return to Crimson Tide Kickoff. Welcome back, everybody. This is the time during the program when we turn our attention to the rest of the SEC.
And Gary, we begin down on the Plains today, where the Auburn Tigers and the Arkansas Razorbacks will square off this afternoon in their top 25 showdown. To say Auburn has lived dangerously, that'd be an understatement. 3 games have been decided by 3 points, including last weekend's affair at Kentucky. Coach Gene Chizik is happy his team is still undefeated, but
it's good that we're finding ways to win at the end. I just would like to play more consistent and better throughout.
Well, the major reason for Auburn's success this season has been quarterback Cameron Newton. I mean, this guy is unbelievable. He's receiving Heisman consideration, and why not? Look at the numbers. They back it up. But he's trying to be the team guy, the leader. He says he doesn't want to talk about Heisman or any of that other stuff. He just wants to talk about how his team has bonded because of all the close games they've managed to win.
You can't go to Walmart and buy team chemistry, you know. And so just being in tough games and just being in tight situations, that can build a team or that can separate a team. And as far as right now, you know, it's been some guys that's really been stepping up as leaders.
Today's game will also be a homecoming of sorts for Arkansas coach Bobby Petrino. He was once the offensive coordinator under Tommy Tuberville, almost took his job. It still doesn't sound like Petrino minds going back to AU.
They're nice people. You know, when you drive up in the bus, instead of flipping you off, they clap for you. You know, it's way different than some of the places we go.
Also a homecoming of sorts today for Dan Mullen. This will be the Mississippi State head coach's first trip back to Gainesville since he left Urban Meyer. But when asked about returning to the Swamp, Mullen spoke the cryptic language of coach speak. And he basically said, hey, it's Mississippi State. Now, here's the rest of the SEC schedule, and you'll see the games listed there. Central Times on your screen. Big one, and we mentioned Arkansas and Auburn. Also, interesting game between South Carolina and Kentucky. Will the Gamecocks follow up their success against Alabama with a big road win against the Wildcats?
But first, Richard Scott's got our SEC forecast. Richard.
Hey, John and Gary, certainly some great news in the weather department there. Lots of sunshine across much of the SEC. And let's talk about some of those forecasts there. In fact, first we'll talk about Vanderbilt over at Georgia. 65 degrees, 11:21 kickoff time. Sunshine in the forecast. MSU plays Florida at Florida. And we're talking good conditions there for that football game as well. Temperatures do quickly cool off, though, after sunset. Temperatures in the upper 50s after the game. And finally, South Carolina playing Kentucky. Weather is looking great there. Lots of sunshine, temperatures in the 60s. John and Gary.
All right, thank you, Richard. Coming up, we'll get the view from the other sideline. After a slow start, Ole Miss has triggered an offensive explosion in their last two games. Will that continue tonight? We'll chat with Harry Harrison of the Ole Miss Radio Network to find out. Stick around. Crimson Tide Kickoff's coming back in just a moment.